I'm stuck on a
No,
box.
you're not.
Oh, God.
There. Tonight this is GameOut, and tonight we're talking about Darkest Dungeon. It's a Steam game. Lovecrafting inspired, I believe, and it's a turn-based RPG. No.
Yes.
Yes?
Turn-based RPG,
Ish.
roguelike,
Okay.
dungeon crawler.
Dungeon crawler.
Yeah.
Loots, lots of loots. Okay. Anyways, tonight we have joining me Robert, Tony, and Kat, and hopefully Aaron soon. So, this game, I believe, is it still in beta, or are they just still developing it?
It doesn't have an ending yet, if that's what you mean.
Well, yeah.
It's early access.
Okay. So, yes, that's cool. So I guess I can start with first impressions, and when Erin comes on, I'll just we'll just throw her a million questions and she can just chat, and then we'll just be organic from there. So Tony, what did you think of the game when you first started playing it?
When I first started, I really liked the artwork a lot. I liked the art style, and I liked the little phrases that were going on when people were running into things and stuff happening. So I mean, it was really positive when I started playing. Like, I started pretty early in the month, and I was just like, man, this is really fun. So I kept playing it.
Good.
Yes. Kat, what did you think of it?
Well, one thing that first impression is, man, this artwork reminds me a lot of Hellboy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh goody, it's another game where you gotta clean up somebody's mess. That usually involves demons.
Yeah, that's a common Lovecraftian theme, is having to deal with the mistakes of your elders and ancestors and stuff like that. And you are burdened with their sins and all that fun stuff.
All that
Why do you need this place? Why can't I just move someplace else? Why do I need it?
Yeah, yeah.
I would not call it a fixer-upper. It would take more money to fix it than you would get out of it.
Yeah, exactly.
And all those poor knights and healers and everything on your team were like, I don't want to go back. I don't like the whole time. Just don't make me. That part I like the best because they're all like going crazy and they really don't want to be a part of this, but yet you're like making them do it. It's like, do my bidding, get me my loot and kill those monsters and skeletons.
You know better than your father before you. There's the twist. I would agree with Tony. Well, I guess to elaborate on my first impressions, at first I was like, this is pretty cool, but I don't really see myself getting into it too much. Feels a little too hardcore. I don't get this. I don't get that. Then I, after kind of getting into a position where I was kind of messed up, I ended up starting a new campaign and playing again. And because I was playing that time with more knowledge than the previous time, things came a little quicker, a little smoother, and I was actually more successful first time around. So I had a better, I felt less like, I felt more capable at that point, whereas before I was like, oh my God, this is just, impossible. And it's still very, very hard. But I got a little further in doing that, and I was like, okay, I'm starting to get it, and now, excuse me, now I'm pretty intrigued, especially understanding the battle system a little bit more and all that. I'm just, I'm like, okay, I can see the strategy here and this and that, positioning of the characters. Although I think one thing that really sticks out as this being an early access game, even though they do a really fine job of putting up little tooltips and tutorials and stuff like that, I still don't fully understand certain things in the game or how they work. Certain information which I feel like should be very obvious and easily accessed is not, or just not apparent. But I'll get into that in a minute.
It's a huge learning curve.
Yeah, which kind of makes sense for that genre of the kind of roguelike, hate your life kind of game. But there are a few things that are extremely unforgiving so early in the game that like you could mess up within the tutorial.
I feel like it kind of reminded me of a little bit of, what was that one? The Swords and Sorcery one, the one that we did, the Scary Triangle.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember what it's called, Tony?
I think it's Swords and Sorcery.
Swords and Sorcery.
Yeah, I think you got it right.
Okay. Anyway, Swords and Sorcery. It kind of was like, I feel like at the beginning of this game, a little bit trial and error. Like you might not know that you need this much food when you go in the dungeon.
Yeah.
Because they're just gonna starve. I didn't know that. I don't know if there was a point that tells you that's gonna happen or not. I didn't see anything like that.
Well, remember the first time you do that, they say, well, we recommend you take this many torches and this many food, but you don't fully understand why.
Why? Yeah.
And that's actually one of the things that I got confused by, and I'm still confused by, is the food system. Because I was like, oh, better bring food, and I go in there, and it's like people are getting hurt, and I'm like, oh, food heals, yay, yum yum.
Yeah.
And then
you eat all the food.
Yeah,
I
just got all the food, and I'm just like, oh, wait a minute, all of a sudden this pop-up appears that says you're hungry. And
which is odd, because when you fed one character like 8 meals,
why
are they hungry?
Yeah, I'm like, why are they hungry? I've been eating this whole time.
It's like, how long in these rooms do they get hungry? It's like, I don't know about you, but if I walk into one room, and even if I were to fight somebody, I'm not going to be like, oh, man, I really need a cheeseburger after I walk out of the room.
Yeah. So, yeah, the food thing, I didn't quite understand. Like, I was looking for a food or a hunger bar or something like that. I could not find it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's definitely something they should tell you early on. And yeah, they have like, there are definitely a good amount of things that I feel like should be hidden where you discover them, and it's kind of like, oh, that's cool, or oh, that's painful, but like I think that's still okay. But some things like the food system should definitely be apparent and easy to understand, so you don't screw yourself over that way.
Yeah.
Or a cheap shot.
Yeah. Well, and and I wasn't sure if there was any way to preempt the hunger. Like, can I eat before I'm hungry and solve the problem, or do I just have to wait for the pop-up to appear? And if that's the case, then how can I plan ahead and go, okay, I'm going to do X, Y, Z before I eat, or I don't know. It's like you couldn't plan around the hunger with what I knew. I mean, there's some information I don't know, or X number of steps and you become hungry.
And I don't know if it's because we kind of only had been doing it for like a few weeks, according to the game's timeline. But it only shows up once, as far as I could tell, in each dungeon. So I wonder if that will be more, because I mean, if you'd only need to get 4 meals then every time, and you know that after the first time. But I wonder if it's like, maybe some dungeons are super huge and they'd get really hungry. I don't know if that's gonna change. And I think the benefit of feeding them for health isn't that huge either. So I wonder, that needs to kind of be worked out.
I feel like the eating for health is like a side, like a bonus. Like, oh, okay, I'm almost done with the dungeon. My characters are low on health. I'm just gonna eat the food because I'm not hungry, or I'm not hungry anymore. I just ate, or something like that. Like, just eat it. Maybe, again, it is one point of health, and the hunger thing, you just don't know when it's going to happen.
It could be maybe something they're developing too.
Yeah, I'm sure it could very well just be a feature that they're working on. The other thing that didn't occur to me also for a little while was what the purpose of the torches were. exactly. I mean, I understand it like makes things a little harder because it starts giving you negative stats and things like that.
Well, your insanity gets affected, doesn't it? If you can't see, then isn't it scarier? And you're like, bah.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's what I thought it was.
Yeah. Well, I definitely want to get onto the stress or sanity discussion because that I have a love-hate relationship with it.
Okay. Just before we go on, like if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask me because I played it a good amount. So like I kind of understand like the food system. There are longer dungeons where you can actually camp, and then you eat food during the camp where you also you have certain survival skills that you can use as well. So in the camping, that'll be a meal also, and you can feed them either 2 food, like for the whole group, which it doesn't do much. You feed them 0, you starve, the same thing happens. 4 is just normal, they get like 10% health, and then 8 is like they get 25% health and 10 stress reduction or something like that.
That's cool.
So
stress reduces.
yeah. So I mean, there's a camping system later on. And also, if you play in longer dungeons, it does seem to be like a certain amount of steps. Like the longer you go, the more that pop-up comes up. So,
but
yeah.
You don't know of any sort of bar or stat anywhere that tracks that.
No. It's just it doesn't seem to be random. It seems to be just a set amount of time. So it's something that you kind of keep in mind and go, okay, this is a short dungeon, I could get 4 or 8. If this is a longer one, I should get more. Etc.
Yeah.
Is it always that it takes 1 week to completely restore their stress level?
It's not completely restored. It depends on what you send them to.
Right.
The top things like the drinking and the meditating give less than the bottom things like the brothel and the flagellation or whatever it's called.
Wait, so the brothel gives you more stress?
Yeah.
So, okay, I don't think they made that clear either. I was actually trying to put people in spots that I felt were like relevant to them. Like the characters that had holy spells and stuff like that. I was sending them to the abbey because I figured they could benefit from that. One of my characters
couldn't gamble. The rogue.
Yeah, one of them was kind of masochistic, so I sent him to the conflag or whatever they call it.
Yeah.
The chamber.
Right.
Relax.
I mean, there are bonuses specifically, like if you get one of the positive perks that says like they regain more. Like there's actually one called Nymphomania where they they regain more stress reduction if they go to the brothel. But that tells you it specifically. So
right, yeah, that stats. Yeah. Okay. Well, I didn't know the lower one on the list was provided more. Does it cost more? Because I thought they all cost the same.
No, it costs more also.
Oh. Okay. Interesting. Regarding stress, so my love-hate regarding the stress system is I like it because it's kind of a neat mechanic, just in general. But what I don't like about it is the way you generate stress feels very kind of two-faced. Like you'll sometimes get stress, like you'll sometimes get 1 or 2 points of stress here and there. And to me that feels about right because it's like, okay, you're experiencing a little stress, as you go along, you're in battle, you're getting hit, and you're, taking a little bit of stress. Like, it makes sense. It's building. And then occasionally you'll just get, like, 25 stress or, like, 30-something stress. And it's not always obvious to me why you've all of a sudden received some excruciatingly large amount of stress, particularly when you encounter the like mounds of skulls. I guess it's supposed to symbolize you having to spend a bunch of time to like you know, dig it out, and your whole party gets exhausted and stuff like that. But like almost every time I've encountered a pile of skulls like that, I had to get past it. It wasn't just like I could go that way, but I'm going to go somewhere else instead so I don't risk it. It's more like I have nowhere else to go but. I did get the shovel later, and now every time I go into a dungeon, I take at least one shovel. But I guess, I mean, that's maybe kind of beside the point. I guess what I'm getting at is that the stress level felt like...
stress mechanic is stupid, I think.
Yeah? Well, why don't you like it?
It's just like it's like an added variable. It's like all of a sudden there's walking in a hall. All of a sudden he's like, oh, I feel stressed. I'm like, why? It's literally it's a quiet hallway. Sure, the ambiance is creepy, but nothing's attacking you. Why are you scared?
Yeah, and I think that's part of my reasoning as well. Is it like you sometimes receive stress that doesn't make sense? Maybe there's a reason. There's probably a reason. Maybe it's because, you know, the torchlight went down a little bit and it triggered something, or your character was experiencing something you weren't aware of. So I can understand maybe there's something happening, but it's not very clear. And like I said, sometimes it's one or two stress, which seems logical to me. You're just enduring a little stress as you proceed. And then other times it's just this giant, you know, chunk of stress, and I don't know why.
And then you're, you know, paranoid or confused.
Although I like the stress effects, I think it's interesting. It kind of mixes things up.
I like the little cut-tos with the drawings of them, like all.
Yeah.
The backstory on some of the characters when they start freaking out.
Yeah.
Like the Inquisition Knight guy. Oh, damn, what's he called?
Yeah, Crusader or something.
Crusader. He's like, why did I go to take this life path? Why did I leave her for this? She loved me.
Yeah,
right. I've seen that.
I like how he seems to be the one that babbles on and on about not wanting to do things and being afraid more than anyone else. Yet he's like the fully armored guy.
Yeah.
It's like, really?
Contrast.
Yeah. Tony, do you know, like, I feel with the whole stress thing, just talking about how it seems like they get stressed a little too easily over things that aren't really that scary. Are there some particular creatures that were a lot scarier that you encountered? Because, I mean, they're creepy, but not like, oh my god, it's like a giant tentacle monster thing, or some kind of horrible, like, ghoulish thing that's really gross, or an awful spider thing. We saw spiders and maggots, which were kind of big, but
grave nibblers.
Yeah, great.
Yeah. Well, I mean, actually, the grave nibbler is one of them. There's a few creatures that when they use their moves against you, it actually gives you a lot of stress. So the grave nibbler, I believe, when it hits you, you get a decent amount of stress from that. So it's just kind of a built-in part of the function of their attack. Like, those attacks usually don't do a lot of damage, they just do a lot of stress to you. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I think I don't know. I'm gonna have to play more and see what else I encounter too. See how that stress stuff works. Maybe I'll make some sense of things. Something else that wasn't really clear to me initially, and I think I'm starting to get it now, was it didn't make sense to me, like what my character's damage was, like what sort of their attack damage, right? So whenever you would mouse over the different abilities, I would look at it, and it was just like there was nothing on there that indicated to me like how much damage it did, other than like a modifier, like a percentage. And so it took me a little while to figure it out, but I guess you had to actually look at the character stat sheet or whatever it is to see what their base damage is. And I guess each of their attacks is just a modification of that number. Can you confirm that that's true, Tony?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
how it works.
That's one of those things I would love for them to actually just display. You know, like show the number, you know, put like a little parenthesis thing next to it and have a percentage, or, you know, like have it indicate maybe what the modifier is, but just show me the number. You know, like I felt like there were some times where I had to like reference two locations to get one piece of information. That was a little weird. And also, it wasn't clear to me at first. Like, I would use one attack and then another attack, and I wasn't sure why it was necessarily doing more damage or doing the amount of damage it was doing in the first place. Again, I'm sure that's stuff that they can and will fix as the game progresses.
The chance to hit multiple targets too. I felt like most of the time I only hit one target. I didn't actually hit multiple.
Well, it wasn't a chance to hit multiple targets. There were just abilities that would hit multiple targets.
But I felt like a couple of them, though, it showed the line of targets you're hitting, and yet, or maybe I'm.
I think the confusion you're having is that there's a difference between like
two dots and the ones
two red dots, yeah, and then two red dots with a line.
Oh.
The red dots with a line all get hit, and the two red dots are just which two possible targets, and you choose one or the other, or three or four.
But you can't choose them all, though.
No, you can't.
Yeah.
You can't. But I guess that's the trade-off. There's some abilities that hit multiple targets for moderate amount of damage, and then there's abilities that can hit one target with a high amount of damage. And it also has a lot, has to do with where you're standing too. I also found it interesting, just also trying to understand some of the abilities that they had, some of the character abilities. Some of them I really liked, some of them didn't make sense to me, and some of them I didn't like that much. I think my favorite ability that I saw, just because it was kind of unique, was from, oh gosh, what's he called? The guy that has a skull with
a plague mask?
No, the guy is holding...
The cultist?
The cultist, yeah.
Oh, okay.
I really like his heal, and how it heals a target between 0 and 10 points of health, but it also causes them to bleed for like 3 damage or something like that. I just thought that was a really interesting mechanic, like that it wasn't just purely a heal. I mean, it was like a heal with a catch, and it was a really good heal that could sometimes be not so good. Like there was one instance where I used the heal, and I think it healed me for 1 damage or 1 health or 2, and then I ended up bleeding for 3. So it was like, that sucked, but it was interesting. It was kind of cool.
I can feel better. No, I don't.
The ability I didn't understand, I don't know if this was passive or what, but the, what is it, the female character with like kind of the hat, like a witch hunter or something like that, or
Bounty hunter?
The grave robber?
Oh, grave robber.
Yeah, I think that might have been it. Yeah, had like a buckle on her hat.
Yeah, it was a grave robber.
Yeah, grave robber. Okay, so it seemed like all of her abilities would change her positioning in the formation.
Okay.
Or maybe it was just one ability, but I would use the ability and she would end up moving to like a new position. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Yeah, that can be. It can be a good thing. It just depends on what you're trying to go for.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know if that was made clear in the actual ability list or what value that provided. Because then it was like, great, I just moved her up close, which might be okay for her, but now I just moved someone away who now doesn't have range.
Right. Some of the abilities have like it'll say forward 1 or back 1. Or back 2. I think they only do 1, but it tells you where the ability is going to move them. I kind of had a cool combo going where I had one of my Crusaders had something called the Holy Lance, which was he can hit 1 of the 2 back people on their team and move forward 1 when he does it, and it did a good amount of damage. And then I had a duelist who, or what's it called, Highwayman, who had a point-blank shot where he could only do it up front against the front person, and he would do a ton of damage and shoot them, and then he would go back 1. So they could switch off like that. He also had a move to go forward. So like he would move forward, and then the Crusader behind him would do the Holy Lance forward, and they would do a bunch of damage. And if he gets pulled forward, he could point blank and get out of there. So,
Pretty cool.
I mean, it's something also that you could work with. It's just something to try to understand the combos and stuff, you know. When you play it enough, like I have, like I've played over 20 hours or something.
So that's like 20 weeks?
Yeah, I'm on like week 25 or something.
Oh, okay. I was trying to figure out like how long, because I couldn't even tell really how long it was for each one. Or are we just dropping it? You're going to feedback.
I turned all the sound off.
Okay. I think it's still going to feedback on mine though.
There's no sound though? And there's no microphone?
Oh, okay. Alright. Just checking.
Yeah, there's no feedback on my end. I don't hear any.
I guess he's sharing his screen.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Yeah, as far as we talked a brief period about the actual art, kind of that comic book style artwork.
Keep talking.
What did you guys think of it? I mean, I know Kat, you already said you kind of liked it.
Just it reminded me of Hellboy, and I thought that it's too bad they didn't get Joanna to play it.
Mm-hmm. Does she like Hellboy?
Yeah.
Yeah, I sent her, or she's been, I guess, checking it out, looking into it. Is it not playing for you?
I don't see it.
Okay.
It's paused.
Frozen.
It's frozen?
I see his hands writing stuff.
Gotcha. Alright, let me see if I can fix this.
Cool.
Don't worry, guys. You'll get this whole soul thing eventually.
I love when they're begging. They're like, please don't send me.
Oh, you should, like, if you try to send them to like one of the harder dungeons before they're at that level, then they're all like begging, no, it's suicide, please don't send me, we'll die, and stuff like that. It's funny.
After watching Sword Art Online, I kind of sympathize with him a bit too much.
Yeah. Oh man. So Tony, does the town stay the same, or I know there's some kind of upgrading buildings. What is that?
Right. I don't know how many buildings you guys have open yet, but it's like I don't think, at least right now, the buildings change at all, but buildings do unlock. So like after every week, 2 buildings unlock. Until like all of them are unlocked. There's like 8 buildings. I think
we only have like 1, maybe 2 left to open.
Okay. Yeah, I mean each time you open buildings, like it brings a whole different like side to the game, and you're like, oh, I could do this. That's really cool. So so it's nice. Like you start off in there's only like 2 buildings, and it's like you can't do much, but you know, as you go through, like, you get more of the content until it's like you realize how much you can change with your characters.
When does your character like leave stress recovery? Like, do they automatically get kicked out, or do you have to pull them out, or at what point?
Usually it seems to take a week, but sometimes it takes longer. I think it depends. Like I was saying, the bottom ones give you more stress recovery. I think they can also take longer. So sometimes they'll still be in there when you get back from your dungeon. Your dungeon run. So if that's the case, usually most of their stress is gone, but they still have some left. And then you could take them out if you want to, but if you leave them in, then they'll recover a little more stress. And sometimes, I don't know if you've run into it, but every once in a while, depending on what they were doing, they'll do something else and kind of get lost. Like if they were meditating, they'll have a vision, and then they'll go look for what they were trying to do, and then they'll be missing for like a week or 2. Or they'll go on a drunken brawl and just be gone, being drunk in the town. So then they'll be missing.
They're just the town drunk. They went on that one in that one dungeon and got drunk, and it just ruined them forever.
Yeah, so they're just binging on booze and yeah, so you don't see them. Like they've never just completely disappeared forever. They just take a week or two, or I think once 3 weeks to get back. It's like, oh, okay, you're back now. But
The guy was just in a puddle of his own vomit for like a week. It's like, can't handle it.
right.
Just keep drinking until I forget all of it.
Here's a better idea. Why don't we just turn around and say to the guy who's sending us here, hell no, I won't go.
No. I am not leaving this brothel.
You fix your own house.
Yeah.
Can you send the ladies to the brothel too?
Yep.
Why not?
Right.
Just curious.
Hey,
Yeah, my lady healer has nymphomania.
Oh,
Ladies have needs too.
yeah. I was wondering because I think we've only the guys so far, but they're the only ones that. Well, no, we sent her to be a drunk at the bar. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Did you ever use the bandages or anything like that? I mean, it seems like the heals are sufficient enough.
When you're bleeding, you use the bandages to patch you up.
Yeah. Yeah, also when you're bleeding, or even when your opponent's bleeding, you can, the little green or red dot or drip that goes near your character. If you put the cursor over it, it'll tell you how much you're bleeding per second, or how much damage you're taking per round, I mean. So, like, if you're taking, like, 1 damage per round, it's not a big deal, but if you're taking, like, 4, then, like, you use a bandage, and that's a lot of health that you saved. So
They should be like, you have lost 3 pints of blood.
Yeah.
Yeah. You are going to die.
yeah, I really like their clothes too. Like the what's his name, or I don't know, the narrator, I guess you could say. Like, he's got a great voice.
Oh yeah, the narration is fantastic. It adds so much more character to it.
All we see is your face, Robert.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you from there, but I don't.
Can everyone else hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. It's just it's showing your face instead of the game.
Oh yeah, that's because the game wasn't showing properly. So
Oh, okay.
forgive me, for I have. Oh my gosh, lots of monsters.
Uh-uh.
I'm gonna share my screen again.
Do it.
Da-da-da.
Oh,
Why
there
do
you
they
go.
have that over their head? What does it mean?
They're all surprised. That's part of why you want to use the torches too. You're more likely to surprise them.
Okay. So here's a question for you, Tony.
Uh-huh.
The skill like take aim that I guess improves your accuracy and crit.
Uh-huh.
Did you find yourself using those buffs often, or just going straight into combat?
Just going into damage for the most part.
Guys, I hate to tell you this, but unless there's sound coming out of the computer, the webcam or whatever is in, that image you're showing is probably really tiny and on the bottom. You probably would have to make some kind of sound for it to be the largest image to be able to be seen.
No, I selected it.
Yeah. Oh,
It's stuck on his image.
okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd have to click off it for it to be bouncing back and forth between us again.
All right then.
So all we see is us at the bottom, and we're little tiny things. And it's just,
Yeah. Yeah, but Robert, for those buffs, they actually can last longer than a turn or even a battle sometimes. But I usually didn't use them unless like I didn't want to attack for some reason. Like I want my healer to heal somebody or something.
Yeah.
But for the torchlight thing, I don't know if you've seen it. If you put the cursor over the torch, it tells you what it does.
Okay.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
I don't know if it showed you. I didn't see it on my
we
screen.
can't see it.
Oh, you didn't see it?
Yeah, I just see your cursor moving around, but I actually see the pop-ups. And they're not bouncing anymore.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
dude.
weird.
There they go.
There it goes.
Okay.
I see.
But yeah, see, like Intimidate will hit them back one, which can be good if like the person's like a melee person. You want to get them away from you.
Yeah.
Don't use the bleed slash on skeletons. Skeletons don't bleed.
Yeah.
Good point. So, let's see. Withstand. So what about like withstand? You know, like if I wanted to armor myself up, do you find that useful for your kind of tanky characters?
Not really, because a lot of times like the tanky characters don't have any way to like get them to attack you, you know. So like they don't attack the tanky characters all the time. Like it's better to just kill things as fast as possible because you're mitigating damage by killing things, you know.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, things just have to be really strong to be worth like not attacking for, or your character can be weak. Like if your character is a healer, then you know they can buff or heal or whatever.
Party heal.
Mm-hmm.
Was there any way to tell what order characters would be like performing attacks in?
Not really. There's no specific like design or art that tells you that, but the speed stat does tell you how quickly they're likely to attack. So the more speed they have, the faster they'll attack, and sometimes they can get multiple turns in a row.
Well, I noticed this little like silver or gold like bar pops up next to the characters, like bar. There's like I don't know if you can see on the screen here. There's this little bar that pops up, and that seems to indicate who hasn't taken a turn yet, like in the new round.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't notice that.
But it doesn't indicate order necessarily. Like he just took his turn, now on this guy's turn, it's gone.
Right. Well, the round you just started, like the number on the top is the round it's in.
Yeah. And so these bars don't actually show me like who's next, but it does show me who hasn't had a turn yet.
Right. Gotcha. Okay, that's good to know. Yeah, yet another thing they need to tell us once the game's complete.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so now that makes more sense with this character. So mash. So you mark targets and then you smash them. Knock back. Let's try that. Wow! Oh, it's dead.
As far as like any like additional things like you'd like to see, if you know, beyond what you see here, is there anything in particular anybody would enjoy having in this game, whether it be mechanics
A
or
run mechanic.
a what?
A run mechanic.
You can
Run?
run.
Run away?
Yeah.
What the?
You see where the map is, Robert?
Yes.
The little top left-hand corner, that little kind of axe left.
Oh, up here, yeah.
Yeah, you can retreat using that.
It's
Yeah.
what's it called?
Retreat flag. That should honestly be like over here, like a big button over here.
Right, yeah.
Surrender flag. That's what it is.
Yeah.
The game tells you that after you lose your first hero. And it's
Uh,
like, hey, guess what? You can run. It's like, I just lost my guy, thanks.
That's mean.
so
Yeah, I know.
They troll you on this game.
Yeah, it's a little rough. I mean, the learning curve on it, like they need to give you a little more direction for
Unless
sure.
that's their intention. 'Cause that's why it's the darkest dungeon, because it's not really clear to completely.
Yeah, but I mean, things like that you should be told before you like lose your best guy. Also, you can escape dungeons. There's when you're in the dungeon area, not in a fight. There's a button in the top left, like right next to where the exit dungeon thing will be, and you can use that to leave early if you're like, you know, you're gonna die in the next fight or something. but you do lose, like, you get a lot of stress if you do that. So it kind of sucks, but you can save your group if you do that.
To the brothels!
Right.
Oh,
They have a very nice cabaret show.
they should show. No, I'm just kidding. I was gonna say they should show you a co-song now.
I love all the little dialogue that happens and little sound effects. You know, when you click on different things.
Yeah.
It adds a lot of fantastic flavor.
Yeah, definitely.
So when you surrender, essentially, when you leave the dungeon, your only penalty is stress. There's nothing else, like you don't lose money or anything like that.
Right. I mean, it's just stress and the fact that you didn't beat the dungeon, so you don't get the rewards for beating it, which can be kind of harsh when you're like low, because if you're low on gold, then it's going to cost you money to recover that stress, and you don't get the experience points. Like when you complete a dungeon, like, you know, usually you'll get experience, so your guys will level up. They don't get that if you retreat. So.
And you always lose all the items that you bring in?
No. Well, the items with the provisions that you buy, those you lose. It's kind of weird, but I understand mechanically how it makes it so you have to manage it. You can't just like buy everything and then, you know, save it for later. But anything you pick up, like the gold, the items, the jewels, all that stuff, you'll get to keep. So it can be a good thing to do that. Like, I don't think you will keep anything if your whole group dies. I haven't done that yet, though. So, yeah.
No, I wouldn't know what happens when your whole group dies. I wouldn't know at all.
Yeah, that just doesn't happen.
Hey, I lost almost everybody. Like, have you guys fought any of the bosses yet?
No.
I've
They
heard
are
called the Swine Prince.
yeah. How did that go?
I've heard of it.
Oh, you've heard of it. Okay. Yeah, the bosses are really hard. Like, I came in with the group. I was just like revving to go. They're like really strong group, and I lost every single one of them. And the last one was on death blow, like almost dead when I retreated and survived with one guy left. So the bosses are where like you think it's unforgiving now, like when they're the ones that stumble you when you think you've got everything thought up and figured out, and they just throw you a loop and you lose your best group.
That actually leads me to a question. How do you feel about the whole death blow mechanic? And assuming I understand fully how it works, basically, as soon as your character goes to 0 HP, they've got one more hit or they'll die.
No, it's not one more hit. They have I think it's a 33% chance of dying on average.
Just randomly, or
by taking damage.
Oh, right, yeah.
So it's kind of nice, you know, rather than just dying outright. But it is also really tough because like if they're bleeding or if they have blight at all, then they're almost guaranteed gonna die because those little 1 damage things could also kill them.
Yeah.
So it's just something else to kind of consider, where it's like they don't die. It kind of surprisingly gives you an extra out, an extra way to save your character. So it's kind of nice for a game that's really tough.
Yeah, brutal.
Yeah.
No kidding.
And then you can also, like, if you heal them for like even 1 health, then they're not in death blow anymore. So they can take 20 damage and then be at death blow. They won't die.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I like it.
I feel like it's not completely dire, except for the first time we tried it when we kind of got screwed over a little bit. But it's not like an FTL where, you know, once everything goes to crap, it's really over. I feel like there is a little bit more of a safety net
Get more guys off the box, more schlubs off the coach.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it doesn't like restart you like FTL, but you can definitely lose your heroes, and like it's not so painful when you just started and they're like level 0 or level 1. I feel like right, yeah. If you haven't built them up, it's not a big deal. But if you invested like 10,000 gold in that one character and they're level 3 and they're your top guy, and then they die, it's like really painful. Like the game hasn't ended, but you're hurting.
And you don't get any of it back. You don't get any money back. You don't get any of the equipment back. It's just bleh.
Well, actually, their items, not their armor and weapons, but the extra items that you could put on them. If you kill the group that killed them, then you'll get those items back.
Yeah,
You'll be able, yeah.
At least that works that way.
Yeah,
Like,
that's nice. It's like, yeah, if you run away, then obviously they're lost. But if you can kill the group, then they're still there. So that's nice. But I would say one thing that is missing, at least as far as I know, is that you can't get any unique weapons or armor. Like, it looks like the only weapons and armor you can get is just upgrades to the blacksmith. Yeah, that kind of sucks. Like, the items I like, even though I think every single item has like a positive and a negative. I kind of like that because you have to kind of figure out like what is worth it, you know? It's not just, oh, cool, just put it on, whatever. So, I mean, I don't know, a lot of people might not like it, but I do. But there's no, like, any unique weapons or armor that I've seen anyways, which I think would be nice.
Yeah, I'm sure that's something they can
I
easily
might
add.
be doing maybe something like that. Who knows?
Yeah.
That was, I guess that's answers my question a little bit as far as like what you'd like to see. Yeah, I would agree that'd be kind of interesting. It would be kind of cool too to be able to go on like a dungeon crawl or something for something specific like that, where you have to fight a boss at the end to get some really cool like Excalibur like sword.
Yeah.
That would be kind of fun. Robert's fighting maggots. Yeah, I would say those are probably the grossest things I've seen so far. But I'm waiting for something grosser. I want more gross. That's what I want.
Swine Prince will do it for you. The Swine Prince will do it for you.
Yeah, I had to run away from the Swine Prince. I'll give a little tip. For the bosses, it seems like most of them, at least the ones that I've fought, they need people that can hit the back row. Like the Swine Prince is like guarded by this gigantic monster, so like that was part of the reason why one of my groups like almost completely got slaughtered, is because like I couldn't hit the back row and that was where the boss was, and so I was just like I can't do anything, you know, and the boss just killed me. So
the rogue can hit the back row, right?
Yeah, the rogue can. I didn't have the rogue in that party though. So it was kind of like I had 2 heavy hitters in the front and then 2 healers. And so when I fought that boss, I was like, I'm screwed, yay. Which
And
kind of
they're
sucked.
like healers, but not like magic wielders.
Yeah, like the healers, like they can do damage, but I use them mostly for healing, so like their damage is very low, you know. Yeah.
Stinking walls.
Is there an archer in this game?
Pile of skulls.
I don't think so. Actually, that's something.
I haven't set up a dungeon, I guess, but
Yeah, like it's something we can bring up. I think I read somewhere that they are going to add more content, obviously, but one of the things they're going to add is like 5 new classes. So yeah, I mean there might be an archer in one of those.
yeah, maybe they don't have they have healers, but they don't really have like warlock types, right?
The cultist is kind of.
Occultist, yeah. Okay. I guess that's what they would call it, because it doesn't really, it fits more with the theme than a warlock would.
Right.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of like stuff that fits into the theme too, like a professor. You know, what would they do? Like, what would their
Syphilis.
Oh no. Actually, one of my characters got that one after they left the brothel. So
Oh my god.
that's kind of funny too. I mean, it's kind of harsh, but it's funny.
It's real.
Yeah.
What would really happen?
Right.
They're not beating around the bush with the reality factor,
Right.
potential of mistakes that could happen.
Yeah.
They want to suck as much as it would in real life, and that's kind of frustrating. It's like, dude,
Yeah.
I'm trying to escape it.
It's like you just went to a dungeon and saw hideous, awful things that almost drove you insane. Now you're going to the brothel to relax, but now you have syphilis.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's much more.
Yeah,
I've got to go back.
Yeah, I mean, I have to admit, I think I like this game a lot for multiple reasons, but I think the flavor is top notch. I think that might be the favorite part of it for me.
Yeah, well, that's the thing that, like, I was like, oh, Darkest Dungeon sounds interesting, and as soon as I found out it was, like, Lovecraftian, what? It's like, I have to play it now. It's like automatic. I have to. Everything that has that theme, I have to play it. I can't help myself.
Yeah.
I mean, they had I forgot what the attack was, but it was, like, Eldritch Pull or something like that.
Yeah, yeah.
I was like, oh! Like,
It's a tentacle.
so stupid. Yeah, that's the dumbest things.
Yeah.
We actually
Plenty of people love that. Sorry?
we actually named our two different games like something that was very, we named one Cyclopean and the other one we named Monolith.
Mm.
Just because, It's very silly. I actually kind of wanted to rename all the characters after like characters from all the stories, but I didn't go that far. I was like,
sounds like
"Yeah,
fun."
name them, but I want to play more. Play at the game actually, not just sit there around going, "What should I name this guy? What would a rogue? What would a rogue be named in a story?" Like,
Jim Bob.
Jim Bob. And those are sometimes it's fun. I like to like give stupid names like Poop and stuff like that.
Yeah. Or you can name them after people you know. Like, I know like the people like doing that with the XCOM game, because then you're just like really invested in them. It's like, oh no, Sonya's gonna die. I gotta save her.
Toby's going insane.
Right.
Have you named a game character after Sonya?
Robert Constable.
Oh no, Sonya, stay away. Yeah. Actually, I think now I want to do that.
Oh, God. Then you feel really bad. Like, you just let one of us die.
Right.
You let one of us die.
Yeah. But it was to save everybody else.
Or it's like you have that, like, one acquaintance, and you're the one that you're like, whatever.
Oh, that would be sad.
I wouldn't do that. That's bad.
Yeah.
I guess Erin didn't show up. She said she'd get here as soon as she can, but...
You said
Yeah.
she was making cookies. That is a very good excuse.
Huh?
You said she was making cookies. That is a very good excuse.
Oh, yes. But I want the cookies. Where are the cookies?
I would
Yes.
like some cookies very much.
Yes, we need cookies for
Some
proof.
Those biscuits last night were very good.
Yes. I had some today. Some with my tea. My tea and biscuits.
How very British of you, but they don't call them biscuits, they call them scones. And then they call cookie biscuits. It's weird.
I know. The reason why I called it a biscuit was because the package said biscuit. I'm like it, and it was. I'm sure they shape them different ways, but I feel like, in my opinion, the scone is like a shape, and they were square. I don't know, or like round, not square.
Oh, yeah, the tea shop back east I need to take you to sometime.
So I'm trying to think of any last things.
That would bring up the property value. Put a tea house in this horrible, godforsaken village.
Yeah, that would be good. That would be like, I think the people that benefit from quiet and like meditation and stuff like that probably would benefit better from something like that.
Totally. Of course, you have to convince a bunch of people to actually move there first to actually get the business.
Yeah.
Come to my village. It's slightly less demon infested.
You just have a mission where you go to another village and you capture all the people that run the great businesses and then make them live in your village. That's part of the game.
Sounds terrible.
You just pay them by not sending them to a dungeon.
Yeah.
Communism?
It's pretty bad. Yeah. Well, I definitely enjoyed the game. I just like turn-based stuff.
Okay, yeah, me too.
It's just entertaining, and it's not like a, you know, like first-person shooters or adventure games where you have to be like constantly on top of it. You got like a few seconds to actually think about it.
Yeah.
You know, okay. I like that. I like being able to strategize.
Yeah, definitely. Me too. It's nice to just be able to like put it down. It's like something horrible happened. You're like, okay. I'm just gonna take a break.
Yeah.
Come back to it when I want to.
It's pretty easy to go back into it. It doesn't feel like it's one of those like grinders where you have to just stick with it for so much time in order to feel like you got anywhere. So yeah, I definitely want to play it more too.
Yeah, me too. The dungeons don't take too long either.
Mm-hmm.
I like you're spending hours in a dungeon.
Yeah, I like the format for that because sometimes in like certain games you're like, oh, I have to get through this and then I'll save.
Mm-hmm.
But in this, it's like, oh, well, this isn't that long. And then there's the case where sometimes you can only finish a percentage of the dungeon. You don't have to do the whole thing. So if you're really like, I don't really want to go in that room, I'm just going to beeline it, just get as much as I can, that's cool too. I like that aspect of it.
Yeah, definitely.
So it's 8, and I feel kind of bad that Erin missed it.
Well, she said that she wanted to suggest the next game we play was Viscera Cleanup.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna say that would be for not this one but the next one because I actually want to do a tabletop game because April is tabletop day month.
Oh right.
Yeah, so I wanted to like build it off of that as a tribute to tabletop, and we haven't done one in a really long time, so
That's true.
I think that would be good. I don't know card game or board game. I was thinking, because we haven't done that many of these types, would be like maybe Sheriff of Nottingham or something like that.
Like card games on motorcycles, and I mean while riding motorcycles.
Yes. Extreme gaming.
Yeah, it was a Yu-Gi-Oh reference. Sorry, guys, I didn't know that.
I didn't know it, but still, extreme gaming. That's the next step. Yeah, I don't know yet what it would be, but I kind of wanted to do that. And so yeah, Tabletop Day is April 11th, Saturday. And Tony, are you going to the Geek and Sundry thing?
Yeah. Oh yeah. We should talk about if we want to carpool or something because I got my ticket.
Also, so you're aware, Kat, the tickets are unfortunately sold out, but they are doing. They are looking for people to volunteer for the day. So if it's something you still wanted to go and see and have a little bit of time to actually, interact and play, you could. But it might also be an opportunity to make some connections, maybe. And there's no charge. They give you free lunch and probably a bunch of other handouts and things. So something to consider.
Right. Well, forward me that information later.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's going on this month, and we'll be at the official event. So I'm gonna say goodnight to the live broadcast, and then we can talk potentially what we want to do for this month, and then I think that other one for the following month would be really fun, because I think, what is it? Janitors in space, basically?
Yeah, it's something very, very, very bad happened before you got there, and you gotta clean it up.
That's awesome. I already like the sound of it. It's like all
It's really bad, and you can even do multiplayers with it. And let's just put it this way: is that this game can end friendships.
Oh, okay. Well,
It's multiplayer?
yeah.
It is a multiplayer option, and like I said, this game can ruin friendships.
What's it called?
This is a cleanup.
Huh.
Yeah.
And basically, something really bad happened, and now you gotta clean up the mess. There's blood and guts and body parts all over the place, and you gotta literally take a mop them up, and when your mop gets too bloody, you gotta put it in the water, and when the water gets too bloody, you gotta carefully dispose of it and get a clean bucket, because if it spills on the floor and it'll get everywhere, and that's more to clean up. And so that's why it says you can ruin friendships this way.
You're like, you idiot, you spill all the gore everywhere, and you're like, I hate you.
Like, damn it, man! We gotta clean up more!
Okay. It's not even real. You're already, oh god, ooh, it's so gross if you really have to do that.
Yeah, so you and Robert should try playing it, but, don't take it personally, because...
Yeah. Well, that is, I will definitely consider that one for sure, because that sounds like terrible and something I would like.
I always wondered who had to clean up after all the aliens and stuff got done, messing things up at the end of the movie.
Exactly. All that gut busting, Okay, so I'm gonna shut this down. So
there's a Santa Claus version.
Yeah. Ooh. That's it for the live broadcast. Oh, next month. Oh, oops, what happened? I lost my thing. Okay, next month. What's April 26th. That's it. All right. Good night.